The Universal Audio Apollo Twin X USB is the Windows-only version of the Twin X interfaces. With their pristine sound and onboard processing power to run Universal Audio's plugins, these interfaces used to be hard to beat. The Twin X USB is made specifically for Windows, and you might wonder why. Many Windows-based laptops and even desktops don't have a Thunderbolt connection, so they can't use a Twin X with a Thunderbolt connection. That leaves a potential niche market unavailable for Universal Audio, and that's my guess to why this Twin X USB was developed. Let's begin with one half of why you might be interested in getting this unit. It's the actual interface and its features. The Twin X is built like a tank. It's all metal, and the bottom and back have many perforations, which I assume provide ventilation and heat dissipation for the Shark DSP processors. On the front you will find a headphone output. It has plenty of power to drive even more demanding headphones easily and sounds excellent with a great soundstage. And there's a special DI input. On the top you have a lot of dedicated buttons that have a satisfying click sound for you ASMR lovers. These buttons let you choose which preamp you're controlling, which monitor output you will use, high pass, phantom power, pad and phase. It's nice to have them directly at your fingertips without needing to go into a menu on your computer. The big volume dial also feels top notch. That one has an excellent feel. This is the talkback mic of the Apollo Twin. But let's see how it sounds when I talk about the sponsor of this video, which is DistroKid. With DistroKid you get InstaShare. This is the file sharing option of DistroKid, which has proven to be very useful for me. You can upload any file and share it to friends and family and of course your clients like I do. The freedom in how long you can keep the files up or add files to an existing upload has proven invaluable to me. It's included in your DistroKid subscription. Get 7% off of your first year with my link in the description. You find two combined mic-line inputs at the back and 2 line and 2 monitor outputs. You have an optical in with up to 8 channels, and that is at 44.1 or 48 kHz. Unfortunately there's no optical out. The Twin X uses USB 3 to transfer data via a USB-C connector. The Twin X requires 12V DC power. The adapter is included in the package and even comes with all these power plug adapters. That also makes you question why a proper USB 3.1 cable can't be included. There's a sound to the Twin X interface and I will describe it objectively. When you do a loopback from the Twin X to the inputs, there's a slight roll-off from 4 to 5 kHz and up to half a decibel at 20 kHz when measured at 48 kHz. To double check whether it's pure inputs or outputs, I use an RME babyface and then double check the RME. The RME is highly linear, which is good as a benchmark. When measuring the inputs of the UAD Twin X via the linear output of the RME, I get this graph. There's not that much roll-off between 5 and 10K, the most is 10K and up, about 0.3 decibels at 20 kHz. If I measure the output of the Twin X, there's a minuscule drop-off from 5 to 10K. Let's do an extreme version of this and re-record white noise over and over, where each new recording is re-recorded by going out and back into the interface. After doing this 34 times, this is the difference. There's about 4 decibels of low cut at 20 kHz with a roll-off. You can hear it in such extreme settings, but with normal usage, in reality, most likely not. Let's now do a dynamic range test. The Twin X has a range of 123 decibels. I recorded the preamps with the cable inserted to provide some sort of input and simply duplicate the tracks. Here are 265 tracks. This is 512 tracks. And this is 1024 tracks. And yes, with 512 and 1024 you hear noise, but come on, this is so far from any realistic real-world scenario that you can say the Twin X has no noise of itself. Now, if you want more of a sound at the inputs of the Twin X, you do what the Apollo platform is known for and insert a preamp plugin in UAD's console. Which one you choose is entirely up to you, and the choice within UAD is enormous and very diverse. That goes beyond the scope of this video, and it brings me to the second half of why you might be interested in the Twin X USB. It is its built-in shock DSP processing. It's an integral part of the interface, from using these plugins in your DAW where they run off the built-in DSP to using these plugins on the input or monitoring of the Apollo console. Whether you want to use plugins that run on this built-in DSP or use native universal audio plugins depends on a few factors. Here's a quick comparison with the same LA2A compressor. I could load up to 10 mono instances of the DSP version before they were maxed out. This, of course, didn't put any load on the CPU of the computer. In comparison, when I loaded 10 of the native Spark versions, my system used about 40% CPU. This difference can be enough to keep your project running smoothly or not. What is more interesting is the latency. The left side is the UAD DSP and the right is the native UAD Spark. The 10 DSP instances add up to 131 milliseconds of latency when loaded like this. The native versions add up to 18. In series like this, the DAW reacts slower, and that is why latency matters. Now, you would never use 10 LA2As in series. I have them on 10 separate tracks. You see that latency is 13.2 milliseconds per track, and the DAW reacts much more quickly. Weirdly enough, I could only load up 9 instances of the LA2A now instead of 10, and general DSP usage got from 94% to 98%. If you want to use the plugins with zero latency on, let's say, the inputs and don't want to stress your CPU, it can make sense to use Universal Audio's DSP plugins. That's probably one reason you see an Apollo interface in the rack of Danny Carey Tools Drummer. There's another thing with the plugins when you use 4K resolution like I do. The UAD DSP plugins don't resize. This is not an issue with the UAD native versions. You can see the difference in size here for comparison. On 4K, the UAD DSP versions are just tiny. Now, when you install, the package installs all drivers. For instance, here in Cubase you get Thunderbolt and Firewire drivers as well, but you can only use the USB ones. This is unnecessary. I don't like fluff to be installed on my machine. The same goes for the UAD DSP plugins. The installer installs all UAD plugins and only a few are included with the Twin X USB package. I get it that it is to show how awesome the rest of the plugins are. It's a marketing tool, but I find it somewhat irritating. It's hard to say where precisely this interface fits and for whom it is ideal. The first one I'd say is for those who already have a bunch of UAD DSP plugins and want to upgrade the interface and stay in the UAD DSP ecosphere and workflow. The second group is those who think they can save CPU usage by going the UAD DSP route. However, as I have shown, the gains using the UAD DSP plugins are not that big. You can question if spending $1,000 on this interface for that is a good investment. Buying an upgrade for your computer, which can be CPU, motherboard and memory, can be just as expensive or even cheaper with a much more significant uptick in performance. Even a better laptop would be a wiser investment. The third group is those who want to buy a Universal Audio because of its name. The weird thing is that there is now fierce competition for the UAD DSP platform, by no other than Universal Audio. They port one after the other of their DSP plugins to run natively at a rate of at least one per month. Also, Universal Audio now releases plugins which are native only and not for the DSP platform, like the new Sound City plugin for instance. This suggests that Universal Audio knows that their DSP platform is aging and eventually will be phased out. Ideally, I would love to see a UAD Pro interface with the same proper converters and build quality, but a couple of $100 cheaper. You will still be a few steps up from the Universal Audio Vault interfaces. Feature-wise, that would be something like the RME Babyface. What's my review of that interface? It's displayed on screen and linked in the description below.